Hi and welcome back to part 8 of this Blender tutorial series on rigging a motorbike. In the last part we finished up the rig for the primary motorbike model, and this is now pretty much done. We've got our suspension and our steering, our ground controls, as well as our drift. And now we're going to focus on adding some controls to add a rider onto this bike. So firstly, I'm just going to open up this file, which is the human character that we're going to be adding on to our bike. It's a fairly standard IK rig setup for a character with IK controls on the feet and the hands, as well as pole targets for the knees and elbows, and we've also got a look target here as well, where our character can look at. I'm not going to go through setting this rig up, as there's plenty of other tutorials out there based on character rigging in particular. It's a whole topic of its own. For the purposes of this series, we're going to assume that you have a character that is already rigged on a IK setup such as this. We do need to ensure that this is an IK setup with feet and hand targets at the very least, and ideally with pole targets for the elbows and the knees as well. I will include a link in the description to the Dropbox folder to this file as well, so that you can download and use this particular file if you would like. However, obviously, if you already have a character pre-rigged that you would like to use, feel free to use that. In this file, we have the rider rig plus obviously the character mesh, and there's also another collection here for the widget, which is just an empty. That's just a sphere empty. I'm in pose mode, that's why. It's just an empty sphere that I've used as a widget for these bones. So yeah, let's jump back over to our motorbike file, and we're going to append in that bike collection. So let's go File, Append, and I'm going to choose my rider rig file, Collection, Rider. Let's append that in. That also brings in that widget, which I can just move to our widgets. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up some controls on our bike. So let's just turn off our rider collection for the moment. We're going to go back to our bike, and under our mechanical layer, in fact, let's actually add a new collection, and let's call this rider controls. Let's turn this off. We're going to go into edit mode. We're going to add a new bone. I'm just going to scale this way down, and where we want to position this is going to be, if I move it over in the x-axis, it's going to be roughly around about here on our foot pedal. This is going to take a little bit of trial and error and finessing to get the positions correct. And from here, we're just going to extrude another bone that's going straight down across the pedal to create this kind of backwards L shape across the pedal. Let's name this one as rider toe target .l, and this one is going to be foot target.l. The toe target is going to be parented to the foot, and the foot is going to be parented to our back suspension deformation bone. We're going to take both of these, rotating around the 3D cursor. We're going to duplicate them, Control M to mirror on the x-axis, and we're going to put them to the other side of our rig as well. We can just rename these from .L to .R. We're also going to add another bone, which is these are going to be our hand controls. I'm going to move this up, scale this way down, Let's scale around that median point. And we're going to put this roughly around about here, facing the handlebars, just above the handlebars. I'm going to press Control R to affect the roll. We're just going to roll this around so it's roughly about there. As I said, we'll probably need to amend these after we've parented, or after we've set up our constraints to add the rider. So we're going to duplicate and mirror over to the other side. Let's call this rider hand target dot L. Copy it, paste it, flip it round. These are going to be parented to our handlebars, to our deformation handlebars, and we just need to correct the bone roll here from where we've mirrored it over. So we can see that this one has a bone roll of minus 84 degrees. This one has 54, so let's just flip that around to 84. So it's like removing the negative sign from this one. And that's it for setting up these controls. Let's go into object mode and turn our rider back on. So let's go into pose mode on this, and on this I've got two bone collections here. The deformation bones, which if I just go into local view, you'll see are just the deformation bones of our character, and then the widgets, which are our IK constraint controls, as well as the hips here. So I'm just going to turn off the deformation bones for the moment. I'm going to move the root bone roughly to around about here on the bike. Doesn't need to be absolutely perfect just yet. We'll finesse this later. I'm going to grab the foot IK, and the constraints that we're going to add to this, we're going to add a copy location constraint to our bike rig, and it's going to be to our foot target.L, and we're going to set this to the tail. So the idea is that this is locking. I'm not sure how well we can see this. If I flip it around this way, we might be able to see a little bit better. There we go. This is going to be locking to the tail part of this bone. We're actually going to need to turn our deformation bones back on. We're going to take our foot.L, which is the whole kind of, this is still like an FK style rig where the IK bone is just going from the leg lower. We're going to take the foot.L and we're going to damp track it to the foot target. So now this is always going to be pointing basically directly on that bone. We can take the toe target, or so we can take the toe, and we can damp track that to the toe target.L at the tail, so at the end point. And I mean, already that's not too bad. Let's set up the right one. So we're going to do the same thing, copy location, foot target.R at the tail. We're going to take our foot bone, damp track it to the foot target at the head, and then take the toe target.R at the tail. So already that's actually not too bad. Our positioning was pretty good there. So let's go back into object mode, and we just need to select our bike rig, and we can maybe move all of these bones just up a little bit. Maybe rotate them around. Yeah, I think that's a bit closer. We're going to have to do this in edit mode, and then you kind of go back into object mode to kind of see the results. So yeah, that's looking okay. Let's just move our hips over a little bit, and in fact we probably want to tilt this foot up a little bit. So let's go back into edit mode on these and just rotate all of these around a little bit more, just to ease that angle of the ankle. Yeah, that looks okay. For the hand, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to copy the location of the hand bone, so the hand target.l, and for our hand bone here, which is actually controlling the hand, damp track to the, it's going to be the hand.l. There we go. So that's now pointing, there we need that to the tail. So these aren't stretching all the way, and that's because our rig, you can start to see where the elbow will bend is once it hits that point. So we just want to, amend these ever so slightly, rotate them down. Let's set up the same thing for our right one. Copy the location of the hand target.r. Let's take our hand bone, damp track, hand.r at the tail. We can set up our pole targets. So let's just move these maybe. I'm just going to, with snapping and just hold control to snap, I'm just going to move these out a little bit. That maybe looks a little better. And to these, we're going to add a child of constraint, which basically creates like a parental relationship, like we've parented it to another bone, but we're doing it as a constraint. And we're going to parent that to the deformation body. That's going to move a little bit, so we're just going to click set inverse, and that's going to snap it back to where it should be. Let's select this one, and then reselect this one, and copy to selected. Let's set up our elbows, and just move our elbows out a little bit. That maybe looks okay. We can just select all of these and then select this one and do the same thing, copy to selected. So these are now at our, they're basically parented via a constraint to the body. Let's also do the same thing for the hips, copy to selected. So now this is going to move whenever our body moves. And now we just need to finally basically rotate our hands and get these rotated correctly. So we're going to select our hand, and rotating around the normal, we're going to rotate around Y, just to rotate them around. And I'm actually going to turn on, I think, X-ray. I'll just turn on in front for this, so I can see these bones a little bit easier. And I'm just going to bend the fingers around the handlebars. I'm just going to do this really quickly, but you can obviously spend as much time as you want on this to get these looking as correct as possible. Let's just bend these around, bend this one, and finally the thumb. See which axis do I want to bend that in. Go. That looks okay. It's not perfect, but as I said, I'm just doing this really quickly. Let's do the other one. Bending these fingers around. Little finger there, and finally this thumb. Let's bend this around this way. There we go. As I said, it's not perfect, but it's close enough. And then what we can also do, we can take this look target and copy the location of the steering in just the X and the Y. So now let's turn off my widgets for this. Let's go back to my bike rig, go to our controls, and now this all works fine. And because we've got that IK constraint, those legs are going to bend with the suspension, and as we turn the handlebars, everything is following nicely. The hands are following and bending around. The legs are staying in position. We grab this and bend this up. Again, our hands are staying in the right position, and as our feet. Again, we can drift. And there's a lot of extra things that you could add to this. Given the knowledge that we now have from the previous parts, you know, we could add a lot of extra stuff to this. Like we could add extra controls or extra constraints on the hands so that, you know, they really do track properly. So maybe as, you know, as steering rotates, maybe our, if I go back to our rider rig, you know, maybe our hand bones rotate on their y-axis a little bit. We could affect the look target. So let's put our widgets back on. You know, we could have, because we've got that lean function, we could maybe have it so that, you know, this goes down as these go across. You know, there's a lot, we could do the same thing with the pole targets where, you know, as this kind of goes over, maybe these ones, you know, come out a little bit, or maybe this one jams in. The same thing for maybe the elbows to control that elbow and the shoulders. You know, there's a lot of extra stuff that we could do here to really start adding, you know, and finessing this rig to make this rider perfect. But I'm going to leave it there for the moment. That's pretty much set up our rider. So yeah, congratulations on making it this far. And in the next part, we're going to add some drivers to our wheels so that our wheel rotation works correctly. Thanks for watching.